So welcome to Illustration with Eric, and I am Eric Wilkerson, uh, illustration concept art mentor at CG Spectrum. So I am going to keep moving along with this color sketch for this project, this cover sample project that I had started last week, and just continue developing sketch A. I want to play with the character's uniform, costume design a little bit more, and walk through the reference gathering stage of this project, and move on from there. So I'm going to try to get through as much as I can in the 2-hour block that we have here today. And one thing I wanted to say before we get started is that I will be on vacation next week. So one of the other mentors, Tyler James, will be covering for my time slot, and be nice to him. He's awesome. Okay. Hi, Chris. How you doing? Great. I'm glad you were able to make it. Um, so if you let me know if you can hear me, because I'm all alone out here, so I don't know if my audio's showing up or if anybody can hear me. Perfect. All right. Um, I had a little webcam issue again. Had the webcam battery died. So I had my camera, my actual fancy Sony camera, hooked up to show my gorgeous face, and the battery died. So that's my luck. That's my life. Anyway, I think we're here for the art, not to stare at me. So let me just jump in. There's no video. Is my picture not is my are you not seeing Photoshop screen? Chris, can you see my Photoshop? The two images, A and B. Perfect. Okay, yeah. Yeah, my camera died on me right before, so I have to get a AC adapter, AC USB plug thing in order to keep the battery from dying out within the 2-hour stretch of this. Baby steps. Baby steps, yeah. I'm learning along the way. So anyway, so Chris, if you've got a couple minutes, so the last week's video I talked about taking rejected sketches and turning them into something different, turning them into something new. So I took sketch B, which was one of the options I had for a book cover that I did, that I probably shared with you a couple years ago, and So I took that option, the idea of a person with a baby strapped to him, like the little satchel sack thing, baby carrier, and turned it into sketch A last week, where I thought of the idea of this, maybe it's this delivery man returning this alien to its brood. So no baby carrier. It is like literally strapped around this guy. Eric's top hat was at the cleaners and he can't be seen without it. This is a fact. This is a fact. I mean, you know, the head is so shiny and bald, like the light in here is just gleaming off of it. So they always reject the good ones. I this is the truth. This is the this is the God's honest right there. Does illustration teach you comic art? So for anybody that does not know, that's a good question, Drawn Skull. For anybody that does not know, illustration is taking ideas, taking a concept and turning it into one specific narrative moment. Okay? Comic book art is sequential art. So there are multiple panels per page that do what I do. And that is way too much work. Okay? So a comic book artist is going to be given a script. All right? And that script per page is going to tell that artist what needs to be seen per panel. Captain America jumping out a window while Bucky is in the background reacting or fighting off Hydra agents or something like that. The comic book artist's job is to figure out how to compose that one panel, what camera angle works best, what lighting scheme works best, how large Bucky should be in the background. All of that needs to be worked out. That one narrative moment, that one illustration is just one panel in a page. And he's got to do that for 22 pages per month, every month. I'd shoot myself. That's crazy. But you have to love comic books. You have to love doing comic book art. And when I was in college, I thought that I wanted to be a comic book artist. And then I realized just how much goes into that. And I thought, you know what? I like to invest my time painting one image, drawing one specific moment, and really pushing myself and making that one image shine. So I kind of steered away from comic book art and then found illustration, and then found the works of sci-fi fantasy illustrators like Mike Wayland and Donato Giancola and Boris Vallejo, and like all of those luminaries of the 70s and 80s and 90s. So I hope that answers your question. Anyway, so so right now I'm trying to think of a proper uniform for this guy. Like, I don't know if I want to go, let's turn off the color for right now. I don't know if I want to go with sleeveless shirt or something like this. But the next step after I do this, all of this, is to then gather reference for this. And I will show you part of my process for that today. I just want to make sure that the color sketch that I'm doing here is cleaned up enough, because what I present to a client can't be rough, unfinished in my eyes. I need it to be as crisp and understood as possible. So getting rid of any overlapping lines and all that nonsense. Plus, illustration pays way better. Hashtag facts. That's right. I mean, unless you create your own IP and they make a Saturday morning cartoon out of it, and then you get a piece of the licensing deal from Hasbro or something like that for the toys, and then you're sitting on a mountain of cash as a comic book artist. But you know, that's one out of 1,000 guys. One out of a 5,000 people have that happen for them. I mean, how many can you name? Can I think of? And I think of the Image Comics guys that created, you know, their own IPs and had their own toy lines and movies and animated series and stuff like that. But the average comic book artist that creates a character for, like, guy that created Green Lantern died broke, didn't he? Something like that. I don't know. It's a mess. So I'm trying to think of. Whoa. I don't want it to be. Just trying to think of a proper uniform. Sleeves. I don't know if I want the gauntlets. It's kind of done to have just gauntlets for no reason. Gotta have the badge. I get rid of the gauntlets. I know, that's what I'll do. It'll just be like rolled up sleeves. Because that's the thing I love about some of the uniform designs, costume designs from a movie like Aliens or Alien, is that they didn't go nuts. They didn't go overboard with trying to make some kind of fancy sci-fi space suits for all of these people. Even though they're on this huge, the Nostromo is this huge spaceship cargo thing in space, anti-gravity units and all that, all the oxygen they could ever need. Probably faster than light travel engines, but they've just got regular baseball caps, overalls, jumpsuits on. So they didn't have to go full Tron with it, with neon lights and whatnot, just to let you know, just to scream sci-fi. So I don't know. Do I? First off, let me think. Let me scale around. This. I'm going to start off a new all of that. Because what I'm thinking now is I want to scale this down, the whole thing. so that if this were for, let's say this was for a middle grade book cover or something, I want to play with the ability to place the text in there a little bit so that it's not overlapping the artwork. So tilting this composition a little bit, try to give it a little bit of a Dutch angle, add a little bit of tension to the scene. Sometimes I'll spend a good couple of minutes rotating things. If anybody were to ever walk in on me, they just think I was just playing with the art, but I'm trying to see like what feels right. You know, does it feel right tilted to the right, or feel better tilted to the left? Like straight on just feels it still has that drama because of his reaction to what's around him, but do we tilt it to make the alien off to the character's right side feel like it's really looming in on him? Too much. What the flip is a Dutch angle? Oh, I'm sorry. I use film jargon when I talk about composition. So a Dutch angle is a camera angle technique used in filmmaking that adds drama to a scene. So if you want to make something feel off balance, or a scene, make an action scene feel tense, or just more dramatic, you tilt the camera so everything is literally and figuratively off balance. So if you ever saw the movie Black Panther, there's a scene where the villain Killmonger walks into the throne room, like to take his place on the throne. And as he walks into the room, the camera not only just does a Dutch angle where it starts off normal as he walks in, and then as he pans, as he walks past the camera and the camera pans and follows him, the entire scene literally turns upside down and then right side up again, so that it's the story, the visual of the story, without ever saying a word. The visuals in that particular scene are telling the viewer that nothing will ever be the same. Up is down, left is right, all of that, you know, everything has changed. And then when as he comes back around to sit on the throne, the camera is back to static eye level. That makes sense? Is that... Sorry, I need glasses. Is that an original piece that you're working on? Yes, Drawn Skull. This is an original piece. I spent the first 2 hours of our first session. I took a bunch of sketches from a previous book cover, sketch B being one of the ones that was rejected by the client, and took that concept. I like the concept of a warrior or somebody carrying an infant, and I decided to change the narrative of that because my daughter and we watch a lot of Disney Channel, and we watched this show called Tots, toddler delivery service, something like that. And so I thought, what would it look like if it wasn't a warrior with weapons and gauntlets and ripped clothing and, you know, looking all tough? What if it was just a kid, you know, delivering a baby alien back to its home planet? So what I decided to do is to spend, I guess, the next couple of sessions of this building this piece up as far as I feel like I want to go before I've said enough with it, I don't know if I want to sit there and be rendering this thing a couple weeks from now, because we're only going to be spending 2 hours on this per week. But that's the difference between uh, illustration and this being a concept piece, because if it was just a concept, I would be half done. It would be a matter of me just sitting here blazing through this, adding some shadows, dropping in some color, and maybe cleaning up the line work, and I'd be done. But my next step is to gather reference, play with the facial expressions, gather reference for the model, the human character, the alien characters, um, the wetness, the texture of the alien skin compared to the texture of the clothing. I have to think about lighting, composition, all of that stuff, and put it together and make it work. But I don't want to bore anybody by have people tune in a week or two from now and go, "Oh, you're still working on this? Pass. Find something else to watch." It's illustration, and you're only seeing a 2 hour glimpse of this process. So I think what I would probably do is spend some off-channel time just developing it so that I can say, well, where we left off, I was on this stage, and now I've put a few more hours into it, and here's where I'm at now. I think that would probably be a little easier for people's attention spans. I know it would be for mine if I were watching. But I'm just thinking about hand gesture. Something with hand. I don't know. Something else. I don't know if I want his arms to be up or down, or more like he's kind of startled. Not freaked out, but so so this, what you're seeing here on my screen, this little alien thing, slimy, wet thing, is actually reference that I had sculpted for a different piece a few years ago, and I just like the eyes and just the darkness of that. So I just figured continue building that up. I don't know if I want them to be this evil, snarling, kind of drooling xenomorph kind of style alien, but maybe something that just feels scary because it's not humanoid or because it's not human, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is dangerous. It just means that that's what I think a lot of sci-fi or alien designs. It's always the evil alien versus the good human. But it's never the opposite. Well, I guess Avatar, but I don't, I don't know. Anyway. Ah, Chris, that's funny. Yes. Yes, that's me. That's me in all my glory. I am a sexy beast. Drawn Skull is asking, can you tell me about illustration in film and video games? What is an illustrator's job in those industries? The same thing as it would be in publishing, advertising, or anything like that. So, an illustrator's job in video games would vary because typically it's a concept artist that is doing illustration. All right, because everything beyond the orthographic views, the front, back, three-quarter side views, and all that stuff of a character is really an illustration. So you're taking that character design, let's say it's for League of Legends or something, right? You're taking that character design that's been done and you are putting it into a narrative moment. So all of those splash illustrations, those splash screen illustrations that you see, that's not concept art. Okay, um, they are taking that character and they are making this moment. They're telling a story. So whether it be for video games or let's say if you look at a lot of those art of books, Star Wars, any Marvel movie, I'd say any given page, probably about 60% of the book is illustration. It's pre-production illustration. Um, they're specific story beats. They're specific moments, keyframe illustrations. They're key moments from the movie that the director, the producers, various people involved with the project want to see before it's filmed. So, like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, some really cool pieces that were done for, say, Captain America: Winter Soldier, where uh, Captain America is fighting Bucky in the middle of the street. They wanted to know what that looked like before they filmed it, so a one of their one of their concept artists, one of their illustrators, was asked to do that, make that image. So hope that kind of answers your question. The only difference between what would be done in publishing and what would be done for film or video games is really the level of finish and the deadline given. The amount of physical time that you have to create that image. So for film, it's maybe a day, less than a week, where for publishing, you might have upwards of a month to do one image. But the level of finish um, required for publishing is typically much higher than what you would aim for or be allowed to do for games or film. Hope that hope that answers that. a question. So I'm lazy and don't feel like drawing a sleeve again. So I'm just gonna flip on the job. So the author's name might go here, company logo, title of the book. So that's about the framing for this piece. Opens it up a little bit more for some additional hint of background and whatnot. So stuff. Really how large this tentacled hand arm should be. Well, the one concern I'm thinking now is that I know this is just for me, but I'm thinking that if this were for a middle grade publisher, Scholastic or something, that somebody might come back and say, you know, that tentacle looks kind of phallic. We should, can you change the costume? Can you change the design of the aliens to be more kid friendly and not too scary for boys age 9 to 13? So, wah wah, toast. All I have got is the head. I have to figure out what the rest of that body is going to look. And so this is where the sole concept art stage of this project, of this process, is. I'm not thinking about what the back view of these aliens look like. I'm not thinking about any of that stuff. I'm just thinking about what looks good for the purposes of directing the attention to the focal point of the piece, which is the boy and the alien in the foreground. So anything else is just kind of background. Do I keep the mouth? Do I just leave it like a neck. No. So there are these dots you see here along the trim of this piece. These are just the borders of uh, actual cover. These are areas where like all of the action should be within this area here, and anything outside of that has the potential to be cropped. So having a hand or a limb or anything of importance be like right to the edge could, obviously cause tangents, but you also don't want to have anything spilling out of the scene in an awkward way that could then end up being cropped. So, like if I had a character's face popping in right here, and then the eye is right there, when they crop this image, there's the potential of that being cropped right about there. It's pretty high. Um, it might not happen. I mean, it might crop right on the line. So then you just have this weird thing going. So anyway, I'm not going to there. These blobby lines in here. Oh, what I wanted. So I'm thinking of different aquatic animals. Um, Fish, crabs, octopus, octopi, I don't know, squid, things like that. Now, one part of me thinks maybe I should put nostrils on this thing, but not every creature breathes out of its head. So the idea of putting, or not everybody's nostrils are in the same place, which have gills and all that stuff. So where does this character breathe from? Gills in the head? Spikes? Maybe there's a maybe the difference between the men and the women of this species are spikes. So then maybe little baby has little baby spikes. Connecting the two. But if we're saying that this species, the baby is the adults or the adult version of this baby, then I've got to put a mouth in here somewhere. Maybe the mouth falls off when they hit maturity. I'll just say that. Overall, what is better, concept art or illustration? Oh man, I mean, that's like, what's better, apples or oranges? It's a valid question. It's a good question, Drawn Skull, but it totally depends on what you want to do. You want to sing? You want to dance? Do you want to cook, or do you want to bake? It's kind of, where does your heart lie? Where do you, if you're making an image or if you're making art, do you prefer to spend a lot of time working on one image and telling a story with it, or do you prefer to do like multiple ideas for a for a job, or for a story, coming up with costumes and props and weapons and vehicles and creatures and all that stuff, um, just on its own without telling a story with it. I mean, you could tell a story with the character, with their body position, with their costuming elements, but there probably wouldn't be anything going on in the background. So, um, it really depends on you. It really depends on you and what you like to do. But I mean, I can't say what's better. Hope that hope that's not too vague of an answer. I've got to add lips. That's gonna drive me crazy. Ugh, I don't want to. No, no, no. Lips are gonna look stupid on this thing. But this is the concept art stage of it. This looks corny. It's already looking corny. All right, no. The lips fall off when it hits maturity. That's the final. That's what I'm saying. To the clavicle stuff. So instead of a phallic claw, phallic tentacle thing, hmm, gotta do the tentacles though. Well, just draw the tentacles and don't make them look phallic, Eric. Duh. It was so hard. So I'm just trying to think of overlapping elements right now, because I want this, I want these aliens that are in the background to not feel too distant. I want them to feel like they're occupying the same space as our hero character. So maybe we have tentacles coming around, looping in. So everything is kind of, everything in the scene is kind of doing this, where we have this moment. Everything is doing this. Everything is pointing in to this guy, right? So the arms, everything is flowing into this moment. So beyond just thinking about the design of the aliens and the costuming elements and stuff, it all comes back to making sure that it's a quick read and that I am creating the right sense of tension and drama and emotion in the scene. Drawn Skull is saying, I like both, to be honest. I like to create vehicles, weapons, costume, and create one image and tell a story with, so I'm just going to have to take both classes. Well, that's cool. I'll be waiting for you. I don't know what order you have to take them in, or what order you want to take them in, but we'll be happy to have you. And always cool to welcome new students. Name your layers, Eric. Name your layers. Tentacle. So if you're out there watching this, you're an artist, concept artist, illustrator, something like that, and you're working in Photoshop, and you've got hundreds of layers, all that say just layer 56, layer 207. Name them. Just take an evening to name your layers. It'll make it a lot easier for you later on down the line. All right, so let me move on. Let's move along on this. Kind of just dragging along. Just this out. I don't know. So the next step in this process for me would be to take this pose, take this sketch, before I finish doing the color sketch of this. I'm gonna take this. I'm going to create a new file. Just have it as a background image to show myself. It's over to another window. Bear with me. I was trying to switch screens to there it goes. That okay. So um can everybody see? Oh no, that didn't work. Oh man. Bear with me. I'm still learning how to do this. Okay. Okay. Um if anybody's out there, can you are we seeing the same screen? I'm in Daz right now. Okay, well, I don't know if anybody in this, but I hope that you are. I see a horizontal grid. Okay, so that is Daz. Okay. So the next step for me in the process of creating an illustration begins with this program called Daz 3D. Now, typically in concept art or illustration, you might have co-workers, or you might hire models, professional models. Especially in illustration, you might hire professional models to pose for an illustration, and that works sometimes. But if you can't find the right model, or if the budget for the job is not high enough for you to afford to um, hire a professional model, then you've got to look elsewhere. And for me, I've found that the Daz program is a great resource for that purpose. So let me grab a character. Um, I've got a variety of different characters in here. I like to think of it like I'm casting a movie, so I've got a bunch of different actors that I can use um, for my illustration. Regardless of what their race might be, um, their facial features, their everything. So I can come in here and play with the shape of this character. I can play with the physical body size of the character, um, and or if it's a fat kid or baby Cartman or something like that. I can do a lot of different tweaks to this. So I'm going to play with this as my model for this particular project. Daz, that's right, Daz. That's why illustrators have kids. Yeah, and I'm going to actually use my son, my infant son, as reference for the alien's face, the little baby alien's face. But for right now, I need to get the kid right. So with Daz, the face on this character is going to get a little funky looking in just a minute, because Daz unfortunately does not have, or not that I've seen in the past, I guess, couple weeks. They don't have different races of teenage kids to choose from. And I think the ones that they do have look really weird looking. So what I end up doing is just taking the skin textures from different darker skin models and then just applying that to the body of this kid. I'm trying to find the one. Go with. So this kid is going to look real. Let me pose him first, and then oh, what should I do first? I'll add the texture, skin texture to him first. We'll just try this. It's gonna look weird. And that kid's got a full-on mustache. Let's just ignore the mustache part. And then I'm just gonna play his face. Still looks a little. So the thing with Daz is that I can literally spend the next few hours just tweaking this character's face and body to get the look of the character that I want, or to match up with the face or the size of the body from my sketch. And I can play with cheeks, like every single piece of this character's body I can tweak for my purposes. And I don't know how interesting that would probably be for people to sit and watch. This could get super boring. Probably just gave people all the information they need so they can go, thanks, I'm out, peace. I don't know what I want to do first. I think I need to fix that nose first. starters. A little now. You can there's a couple different ways you can play with expressions, facial expressions, and as I like to just come in and just carefully tweak every little. I mean, like, because it can get a little comic booky, a little comic exaggerated really fast. That's a little stupid. That's we don't want to go overboard. That's what I'm saying. So this is also where I like to just take my sketch, close out the entire illustration, and then play with the camera angle. Because sometimes I see something here that I didn't see in my head. And now I'm thinking to myself, should the entire composition be more of a low angle where all of the aliens are really looming in on him and he could have up a little bit more, tilting his head up like this. I know that changes everything. And since I've only technically put in 3 hours of time on this actual sketch, this is something that if I were sitting here in the course of an actual day, I might go back into the drawing and then completely change it now. Now that I've seen this, because it doesn't technically change the story, but it changes the feel of the moment. So now we could potentially be looking up at this character with the alien strapped to his chest and see more of these silhouetted alien creatures like in the background of the piece. But that's that's what I love about this program, is that I can come in here and um, compose the figure, light the scene with as many dramatic lights as I want, and then go from there. So I've created a camera in this in DAZ. So I have a camera view in camera. Let's see. All right. There you go. So now that camera is basically my composition for the illustration, right? So now I have this. I can put up a little bit, play with the hands, play with all that stuff, and then if whatever else I want to do to this character, I can move around him in that 3D space in this view, and it does not alter the camera, the actual camera for the scene. I can always come back to that. This won't be a DAZ tutorial. This is just showing you my workflow. There are some really great tutorials on how to use practically any software out there. I mean, I can walk people through how I do what I'm doing right now if anybody has any specific questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on moving. And for anybody that's just tuning in, this is my reference for the alien delivery man sketch that I was working on. It's just that the texture map that I applied to this kid is the texture map of a grown man with stubble and facial hair and full-on mustache. So that's not something that I can get rid of without opening up the texture map and repainting it. And I'm not going to do that. So that's that. So I'm not going to spend my time right now working out the facial expression and all that stuff. I'll do that later, and then I will build this up to a final drawing in between sessions so that when we come back to this, I can just dive right into the painting stage of it. Have that all worked out. So anyway, what I want to do right now is light this moment using the DAZ lighting engine. So first thing, I think I should probably put some clothes on this naked guy, because this is a PG class, right? Or not a class, but this is a PG environment. Well, G, let's call it G rated. I don't even know what kind of... We just want to put a basic wardrobe on him. It doesn't necessarily have to be something made specifically for him. But I'm just going to just grab something so that he's not naked. usually spending my time clothing. I have a lot of costumes for ladies, but not a lot for dudes. And I'm not gonna put them in the leather costume. I don't know. Let's see what this looks like. Oops. I don't know if this is gonna work because it's technically it was made for, and I it's probably gonna get. That's what I thought. Still loading on my screen, so it might get rid of the little chest bumps. But if it doesn't, I'll just get rid of it and just light him without clothing. I just hope I didn't freeze up my entire computer trying to add a lady's sci-fi costume to a kid's body and crashed Daz live on Twitch. Awesome. It's like crap. Ugh, that looks happen. We're just gonna get. All right, so before I go any farther with this, before it crashes the program, I'm just gonna save it. Then create some lights for the scene. So first thing I want to do is set up a main. It's gonna be a soft blue foreground. Gonna be camera. That's gonna be light one. If I were So that's where the weird texture, putting an adult man, muscular man's texture on a kid's body, kind of looks strange without clothing because he's got more abs than me. Um, but then that gives us an idea of the temperature of the light that would be shining foreground of the piece, but I'm going to tone that down. And this is something that if I were using professional models, I would set up a whole, I would have to. So I use DAZ because if I were to be shooting this as a professional book cover project, I would have to contact, I wouldn't know any kid, any teenager that looks like what I sketched. So I would have to contact the modeling agency, go through their kid to teenage brochure or their catalog of kids to hire for this. But I would have to be given access uh, to that information. I have to prove why I need that reference because um, a lot of these modeling agencies, specifically for kids, are very careful about who they give access to images of little kids, and that's understandable. There's a lot of freaks out there. Um, but then there's that hassle, and then contacting a modeling agency, hiring or contacting a photo studio, booking time at that photo studio, hauling all of my lighting equipment and gels and all of that stuff into the city, catching a cab or driving to the photo studio's location, waiting for the model to show up, setting up the lights, and hoping that the model can actually model and emote and do what I want them to do with their face and with their expressions, with their body language and all that. And then take the pictures, pack everything back up, drive home, and plug it into my computer and hope that I got the reference that I need. Now that's 5 or 6 hours out of my day, just doing that one thing. Once I have booked the shoot and scheduled the model to show up and all of that stuff has happened, then the actual event of photographing the model can take about 4 hours or so, depending on how many characters I need to shoot. Um, and that's a crazy amount of time. So if I can grab a 3D model of a kid, put it into this program, move lights around it, render it quickly, and then bring that information back into Photoshop, I'm saving myself time and money because the a, a photo shoot, just hiring a child model is something like $300 an hour. So that's insane. And then on top of that, it's booking the photo studio, which is probably another $100 to $150 for a 3 or 4 hour stretch. So, like right off the bat, you're looking at close to $500 off of your budget or out of your own pocket just to get reference for your illustration. And that's necessary unless you want to make it all up, and there aren't many people alive that can do that and make it look convincing, realistic. So, anyway, so that's that process. So let me add a couple more lights into the scene. I have this auxiliary viewport over here in the top corner that I use a lot to gauge and see whether or not my lights are working or if they good for the scene. Same thing. Is in my color sketch that I had started last week, I had this cool color, this rim-like color coming from behind the character. And then the foreground was going to have this warm light affecting the figure. So that kind of gives me a little bit of what I want, but then now I want a second glow, second light coming from the left-hand side. So that's basically just duplicating that reference or that light. This makes it, this almost guarantees that when I do actually paint this character, there's no guesswork. I don't want to be thinking about, is the lighting accurate? How would this look? Anything like that. I want to just be able to pose the character, light it accordingly, then just go into attack mode. I don't have this cool dramatic light affecting character. That gives me some information on like what that background light and the glow from that would look like. And from there it would just be about posing it out, facial expression right and all that stuff. Decent clothing on him and going from there. So if we go back to scale. Chris, yeah, this is it's Chris saying this is so cool to see this part of your process, and now I know about DAS and Dutch angles. Yeah, man. Make your next Muddy Colors post be about cinematography and illustration. Drop bombs on your audience. I think they would love that. So I just want to sit here and just work this out a little bit more, because like after doing this whole sketch, that's what ends up happening to me is I will do an entire color sketch and then bring it into DAS, play with the camera angle of that moment, and then see something even cooler than what I had sketched. So the process, this whole process is evolves a lot before, because sometimes what you see in your mind's eye, what you see in your head, isn't what you end up going with at the end of the process. You might have sketched something in your sketchbook, and you think to yourself, "Oh, this could make for illustration," and then when you finally get down to it, you realize, well, the whole scene looks way better at a low angle with this lighting or this color scheme or something like that affecting it. So instead of the characters looking violent and ominous looking, I figured what would it look like if the lighting in the scene gave us that feel. Underlight these characters in the background. Play with all of that slime or what. What's generating that light source? There's some kind of bioluminescent stuff going on back there. Who knows? But all of that all that matters is that that light source creates value and color contrast around our character, focal point of the piece. Okay, so like if we were to take this and turn off all the color, we'd still have to and so the lightest light in the entire piece, even though that blue-green looks bright, it's technically not. It's like a value. It's a middle tone value that blends more into the background. The lightest lights in the entire composition are on the face of the alien. So, and that's kind of the direction I want to keep on going with. And I could even push that a little bit farther and punch up the value on that face just by doing something like that. I'm just using the dodge tool to push this. So if there is a unseen light source affecting this character, affecting the foreground of this composition, if there's an unseen light source affecting this composition, shining right on this character's face, then there technically should be some kind of underlighting hitting his face as well. Because it's not going to be something that is an isolated light source. I don't want to push the underlighting on his face too much, because then it would draw the eye away from the alien. But I want to at least establish a little bit of that cooler tones into his flesh, establishing stuff like that. Cheeks. Is the thing with painting darker flesh tones, especially in different kinds of controlled lighting, is that the flesh starts to act like a mirror, reflecting all of the different colors around it, which can be interesting too. So, so there's that. But again, like I'm probably not going to end up using this straight on Dutch angle scene anymore. I'm thinking the final piece is going to be more of a low angle. So this is really just giving me my color information that I'm going to go back into DAZ and finish illuminating. Yeah, Chris saying, this looks awesome. I know what you mean about sometimes the entire picture morphs once you start assembling the reference. Yeah, it happens all the time. And I mean that's not the most thrilling speed paint kind of thing people might be tuning in to see, but like so much of this process is evolves. And like if this were a time lapse illustration, yeah, sure, I would, we would skip over so much, and it would just look like I effortlessly just blazed through it instead of sitting here toggling layers off and on while thinking about what to do next. But that's part of the process. It's an evolution. You have to be prepared as an illustrator to go with what looks coolest, what feels right for the needs of the piece. Now that I know that information, I think it wouldn't make sense for there to just be this narrow beam of light. I have to think about this because while I was working on this last week, I was just kind of going, well, what if this? What if that? What if we put this narrow beam? What if there was like a doorway opening up or something like that, and it's doing this, right? Like this is not a super original lighting scheme by any means. Illustrator named N.C. Wyeth used to do it a lot in his works. If you're not familiar with the work of N.C. Wyeth, he was a traditional illustrator, the turn of the century, that did a lot of book cover illustration and different advertisements and things like that for various magazines. And but he, in the age before movie star or like YouTube and all that stuff, like illustrators were rock stars. Like he used to have dinner with celebrities because he himself was a celebrity. This is the work of, see if it will show you on the screen. This is the work of N.C. Wyeth. So the lighting in this scene is what inspired what I'm doing right now. So this is what I was thinking about when it came time to light my illustration. Only I'm going with more cool blue greens as opposed to this warm yellows. So like we have this character looking off into the distance, and it's kind of like imagining the whole story is I guess he's the apprentice, or maybe he's the son of this guy here, laboring away, making, crafting wood, doing something with wood, um, looking off into the horizon, looking off and seeing, thinking about what his life could be if he wasn't here doing this. Um, the lighting in the scene crops him off, like and puts more of the emphasis on what he's actually doing. And then there's that underlighting, that bounce light coming from the light hitting here up into his face and under his nose there. So that's what I was thinking about when it came time to do my piece. So I'm thinking that the lighting that's hitting this character wouldn't technically just be something that hits just the alien. It would kind of overlap the arm of this character a little bit more, so the arms would be warmer, and maybe that light kind of stops here. So we're basically saying that maybe there's a doorway that opens on a diagonal, and then that's the light. It's the light that's pouring in from that other room is illuminating our character, or both of our characters. So that's what I'm going to try and push right now. Last few minutes. So tried to just get started doing the DAS model, and hope I didn't put anybody to sleep. Probably did. That sexy smooth voice of mine, nobody could actually pay attention because they're just like nodding off. I want to punch that up a little bit more, the color that's hitting these characters, from that light, that cropped light source. Add more of that color contrast to the scene, and also to really push that hue change as it goes from warm to cool. Drawn Skull is asking, when it comes to illustration in film, they're the ones who illustrate what a scene would look like, right? Yes. Yeah. Think of one of my favorite art books is uh, Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. So think of all of those really cool acrylic gouache paintings done by Doug Chang for the pod race scene and for the uh, all these different moments from Phantom Menace. That's all illustration. So after the pod racer was designed, after the ships were designed, after the environments, the Federation, uh, whatever you call them, those big blockade donut ships that were floating around over Naboo. Once all that stuff was designed, then uh, Doug came in and splashed some color on an actual painting, and I think he was really doing them physical paintings. This is like '96 or something like that. Not a lot of Photoshop production work, but yeah, real paintings for illustrations to show George Lucas what that scene might look like before all the visual effects guys get a hold of it. So yeah. Anyway, I think I've hit my limit for my time today, and I could probably just continue working on this, playing with the color, playing with the light, bouncing back between my composition for my sketch, and figuring out the pose and what I want to do with the 3D model. But I like to do this back and forth and figure out and have the piece kind of speak to me and kind of take it to where it needs to go. And like when I'm done with that and am happy with the composition, the lighting, the colors that I've chosen for the piece, then and only then do I begin to jump into doing a final drawing and then a final painting, whether that be done traditionally in oil paint or digitally. But the entire thought process for the illustration of the workflow gathering the reference, working out the sketch stage, all that stuff happens digitally for me. And I hope that this didn't put too many people to sleep, only maybe 3 or 4 of you. But anyway, so I just wanted to share my process. Thanks to Chris for keeping me company. This COVID mess has got to clear up so we can hook up and hang out and, go paint something. Anyway, so I will talk to you all. Thanks, Chris. So I will talk to you all soon. So again, for anybody that didn't catch the beginning of this little video, I will be on vacation next week. So my next stream with you will be on the 31st. And I think by then I'm probably going to have a updated color sketch, utilizing a different camera angle and all that stuff that I figured I liked better this week. So it won't be an eye level scene. Maybe it might be an eye level scene. Oh god, I can't decide. Like, I like that, but I also like that. It's driving me nuts. Anyway, man. Anyway, that's just me. That's not an Illustrator thing. That's me being indecisive and not knowing which composition to go with. So at some point I have to pull the trigger and say, you know what, I'm going to go with the eye level, or no, I'm going to go with this version. But maybe that was too extreme. Maybe it needs to be a little bit, maybe like that. I don't know, slight low angle, not more extreme like that, because this is more hero angle. That's at least a little slightly low angle. Anyway, okay, so that's it. Thank you for joining me, and I will talk to you all soon.